All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pogue, and today I have a couple of very special guests with me. This is Eduardo, Client Success Manager, and this is Alex, business partner in the mastermind, founder of Client Success Solutions. And today we're in Las Vegas, Nevada, after a 2-day jam-packed acquisition.com workshop at the Hormozi's headquarters. And today we're gonna have a good conversation. So, Alex, would you care to introduce yourself and give a bit of a background?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Alex Kerr. As Jeremy said, I'm the founder and CEO of Client Success Solutions, and we help actually good coaches scale with the clients they already have by installing client success systems. And yeah, I've been in the info space for about 5 years. Used to work for one of the largest coaching companies in the entire info space. And yeah, I have a lot of time in the trenches as far as being a coach and a CSM, and also have served a lot of 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs as well in the past 2 years with my work with CSS. And yeah, that's pretty much kind of the rundown of my entrepreneurial kind of career in the past 5 years. So.
Love it. Alex has been helping us build out client success systems, kind of rebuilding the program to take it from 7 to 8 figures as well. So he comes highly recommended. But Eduardo?
Yeah, so thank you, bro. Eduardo Lew, originally from Mexico City. So yeah, I also got into the entrepreneurial online space about 4 years ago. My background is mainly on peak performance, personal development, and yeah, I had my business running for 4 years, and after 4 years of doing it, and funnily enough, when things were the best with my business, I realized that I didn't want to keep doing it on my own. Like I had a bigger mission and calling, and after knowing Jeremy and Alex for, Jeremy specifically, I think for 3 years before we actually joined forces, and Alex for like about 6 months. Just going back to that whole concept of, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. So I was like, might as well just join forces with people that share the same values and vision and mission, which is why we're here. Probably something that we'll be speaking about in the podcast. And yeah, decided to join forces with them. But basically, I had my own coaching business, helping CEOs and entrepreneurs with peak performance, just help them squeeze as much as possible from their units of time that they're limited so that they can reach like the best results in the fastest amount of time. So combining that with my experience in my own coaching business now, serving people inside, currently Summit Acquisition, to help them reach insane levels and scale their businesses and serve clients in the best possible way. And just help them basically with that.
Love it. So long story short, we all have quite the background and quite the experience in the info product space. It's an interesting industry because at times it feels like the Wild West, and it feels like the tides shift a lot back and forth. And especially now more than ever, there's never been a time, maybe there has been, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like it, where trust is a scarce resource, and not many people trust many people at all because of a lot of the crazy over-promised claims and guarantees that are just thrown around like nothing. And it's an interesting time, and it poses a threat to a lot of people, but I see it as an incredible opportunity. I know one of the things that we've been talking about is kind of seeing the transition from like high ticket to like low ticket, right? The MRR, the monthly recurring, the low ticket, a few $100 a month, community kind of thing. But at the end of the day, that can only take you so far, right? Because especially if you're working, kind of depends on who you're working with too. The more sophisticated the buyer, then like they're not even going to consider looking at a low ticket thing. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Alex, because I know we've been talking about this a lot off camera, and you've had some good observations of kind of like the shifting of the tides and the changing of the guards, if you will.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There is a lack of trust for sure. It's not just in the info space as well. It's kind of just in life at the moment. And I think a lot of this, not to get political, but it did start somewhere around like 2016, with the Trump election and the way that went. And then COVID, of course, was a huge eye-opener, I hope, for everybody. And yeah, this seed of doubt expresses itself in pretty much daily life, right? And so I think that component shows itself inside of the info space for sure, but there are specific things that a lot of these coaching, if not most of the coaching businesses that we compete with have done that have contributed to that. So, back in the day, which is only 5 years ago, but when I first got into the space, everything was running through automated webinars. Like, that was it. There was hardly any VSLs. Sam Ovens was still the king in the info space, and to a certain extent, he kind of still is and always will be, because the way I say it, he is the godfather of high-ticket consulting in the info space. And, then things kind of transitioned to kind of standard, like 30 to 45-minute VSLs as a normal funnel. Then that time, the length of the VSL started to get shorter and shorter as the years went on, and also the production quality as well kind of went from basically a short webinar with Google Docs, or rather Google Slides, and down to a Google Doc itself. And then Sam Ovens made the Google Doc VSL popular when he announced Skool, basically. And so that also, we can see a pattern there where the amount of time that you have to build trust with your prospects and leads and anyone that's watching your content has just gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. And so, nowadays, right, we go from Google Doc VSLs to 2.5-minute VSLs, right? And eventually maybe that, it might turn into like literally 30 seconds, Now, my point in saying this is that the amount of time that we have to build that know, like, and trust factor being very small, people have overcompensated with that by saying crazy shit, basically. And a lot of that was facilitated in part through the teachings in $100 million offers. And so I don't think this is Alex Hormozi's fault whatsoever. I just think people misinterpreted the real message behind having excellent guarantees and building a really badass offer stack, to where people just started saying whatever the fuck they needed to say to get that sale. And so and it didn't take very long too. $100 million offers came out in 2022, right?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 2 years ago. It only took about a year for that, the consequences of that to really show themselves. And so we were talking about this a few days ago. We were having steaks, I think, some actually good steaks, but Chef Lew over here. The thing that I remember noticing a lot back then was the claims in the ads were just getting crazier and crazier, where people were claiming that there's a really popular offer where it was like, we'll fill your calendar with qualified booked calls for the next 30 days, or you don't pay, right? So that was a really popular offer. And then that got exhausted over a period of 3 to 6 months. And then it transitioned to, we will fill your calendar for 30 days and we'll close them for you. And things just started getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And I think people just got tired of that. And now the flip side of this is we have people like Sam Ovens and Alex Hormozi with the recent news with Skool really pushing monthly recurring revenue groups on Skool very, very hard. And they've explicitly stated that they believe that the high ticket model, not that it's going away, it's that the effectiveness of people being able to sell a high ticket offer the way that they have been in the past is starting to diminish, and we already see that. And so, Alex mentioned this at the event that we just came back from. He also mentioned it on the, I think it was either the opening ceremony for the Skool games, or maybe it was the live stream they did for the end of that first month. But the idea is basically that people want to pay for the first thing, which is cheap, so they can, again, trust you, and then they'll cough up thousands of dollars. And Yeah, I think to an extent that's true, but the key thing here is that if you're an actually good coach and you truly care about client success, I think there will always be a place in the market for the best solution for the problems that, people's clients have. I think that's the bottom line here, is that as there's a race to the bottom with the price of offers, and there is an expansion and a devaluation of the information itself, the thing that will get valued and it continues to get valued is the client experience and the client success rates inside the program. To me, that's really the only thing that matters. Obviously, I'm very biased about that, and perhaps we can go off on another tangent on how client success touches every single component of our businesses. But I think a lot of people have interpreted what Sam and Alex are pushing to say, oh, high ticket's dead, and now I just have to, go all in on creating school groups. And we've even seen like really successful, like 8-figure guys in the space going all in on their MRR groups. And I don't believe that that is the path for us, and it's not a path that I want to go down myself. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on that piece specifically.
I think it's a very interesting moment in the market, and I think that a lot of the reason why all of this started happening is, first of all, like how old do you think this whole market in the online space, the online industry is? 5-10 years, maybe?
It depends on how you measure it. I mean, people started selling online courses in like 2002 and 3. I think probably around 2007, 8, and 9 is when probably the very, very early iteration of the market we're currently in began. But I think the most recognizable part when this all started was probably around 2012.
Okay, so pretty new, you would agree, right? Like, especially from like a business lens. I think the way that I see it is the market starting maturing in the last couple of years, and with all of the factors that you spoke about of like people making crazy claims and the problem being them not being able to actually fulfill on those claims. I think a big part of the problem was that the wrong behavior was being reinforced, right? Which is, I think, something that we saw a lot in the last couple of days in the event as well. Like, the market was rewarding that like short-term promise, but there was nothing to back up those promises, which was like being reinforced and those crazy claims. And I think when people started realizing, like, I mean, because that was my case, that's how I ended up here, basically. Like, in my first 3 years of my journey, I invested more than $70,000 in the industry in some of the top names programs, which is more than what I paid for like my degree in one of the top universities, engineering degree in Mexico, like, so it was a bit crazy. And unfortunately, I was failed by the industry. Like, more than 90% of the time, the programs were like really, really bad. Like, at least not up to the level of like the promise or the 5K, 7K, 10K price point that you were paying, right? And when you analyze it, like when I was like really sitting down and analyzing it, I realized like, hey, like literally less than 10% of the people actually succeed. So what the fuck's the problem here, right? That was with more than 90% of the program. So I think one of the biggest reasons why people are shifting towards that is because the market like kind of got tired of like just hearing bold claims of no one being able to back up those words. And the reason why we feel so confident in leaning actually more on it and going towards it is because the promises that we're making are really aligned with our core value, which is like client success and just being able to fulfill on that promise that you make, right? So I think it is a really interesting moment in how things are shifting. It's just like seeing who's able to like double down on that and actually being able to fulfill on those promises, which means that they're actually good at what they do, right? They're actually good coaches, versus the ones that just decide to go towards like the low ticket because we're in a market where now it's like that whole thing of like, first pay lower ticket so that I can then win your trust. It's easier to deliver. It's easier now that the market is like more sophisticated. They're like, I'm not taking your BS and like this crazy claim. So I'm just gonna lower my prices. I mean, it's easier to do, right? I'll just lower my prices, lower the expectation, and have people that are not like very mad at me for not being able to deliver, because it's way harder to actually deliver on a promise that is like 8K, 10K, 12K, like there's actually very few people in the market that can actually deliver on those things. There's a lot of work required. Like it's basically what we've been doing, right? Like the last 4 days, not not going out of the house for like what, after 10, 12 hours, just working, just debriefing, doing the plan. Like it's a lot of work. It's not easy. And I think it's just easier to be like, yeah, instead of putting in the work to actually back up those like high ticket prices, I'm just going to lower my prices, have, go with the trend of the market, make people happy. But as you were saying in the beginning, I think this represents a big opportunity for the ones that do want to put in the work and just back it up with actual client success. So
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think that's the takeaway here, at least for us. It's like there's a market correction happening right now. And it's no different than any other type of market, like crypto or the legacy stock markets or anything like that. When there's blood in the streets, that's when the greatest opportunities present themselves. And it's almost like this discussion right now. It's a declaration. We're not fucking backing down. Like we are not going to devalue the actual tangible results that we've been delivering for clients just because everyone else can't fulfill on their own promises. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that people have not been able to fulfill on the promises that they've made to the market. It's that simple. And we do. So why should we match our behavior with other people who can't match ours? It just doesn't make any sense. And also goes back to leadership too. Why would we follow the rest of the industry, which have already proven to be incompetent in a lot of ways, respectfully, down into a bottomless pit, race to the bottom, where all of your products and services just get priced down to close to nothing? I just don't think it's a good idea. And so yeah, we're not doing that, are we?
Objectively speaking, matches the value of what they provide. And the market is sophisticated enough, they're not taking BS anymore. So,
plus with the types of clients that we serve too, they've already gone through all the bullshit. They've gone through the courses. They don't want to go through a $300 thing, a $1,000 thing. They want to just get the result, right? Like the last, 4 clients that signed up, all came from referrals from happy clients that got incredible results. When we were at the event, people would come up to us, hey, are you Jeremy? And then we're standing with one of our clients, Eric, and he's like, yeah, this is Jeremy. He helped 10x my business and stuff like that. And then like their eyes just light up. And so when you're actually able to back up your claims, then it just like, you don't have to sell, right? When your product is exceptional, then you don't have to sell or market really. And you just be transparent, just pull the curtain back and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's performing. Are you in or you're out? But like the caliber of clients that we're going after too, it's like they want to just get the result. They don't want to go through all the BS. And I think part of the reason why our clients get such good results too is because the way that we've designed the program in the first place, where it's just actionable, it's tangible, right? And like if you're joining like a low ticket community or course, it's like you can expect all the information to be watered down and on YouTube already, right? But like that's not what people are paying for. I can't see a reality where there's ever going to be a scenario that experts don't want to sell their knowledge and expertise online and where they don't need help getting new leads and customers. So in that sense, and the smart ones are the ones that are willing to pay for the expedition or to expedite their success, right? And I think that like, if you also just kind of take a bit of a step back and you look at incentives and intentions, when you think about the big dogs in the space, the ones that have the most influence, yes, I'm going there.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
When you think about the guys that have the most influence, like Sam or Alex, they've identified this trend earlier on. They saw where the market was heading. It was all high ticket, crazy claims that nobody could back up. They're like, okay, this is going to lead to a trust recession or then a lot of people, like mass market's gonna shift from high to low ticket, and then so they're capitalizing on it now, right? But that's them. So that like, but then they also have influence, so they're the ones that are creating the narrative, telling everybody else, hey, this is what's going on in the space right now. Here's where this is going, right? So you got to kind of see who's pulling the puppet strings and why as well, right? And I know this is something we've been kind of talking about, and you brought it up initially, Alex, as well. So I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on it. But again, just because everybody else is doing it, all the sheep are running this way, right? All the blood is in the streets right now, everyone's scared and panicking. You can either choose to follow the herd or be that unshakable, grounded rock in the midst of all the tides of chaos.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I think my take on this is probably just a reiteration of what you just mentioned. But I just was observing some things through things that were said and not said in content, and then also in the kind of like these kind of inside baseball pieces of content, like the Skool opening ceremony, and then just knowing things behind the scenes. And exactly as you mentioned, we always need to be aware of incentive and disincentive structures in any type of relationship. It's key to being able to make sure that true alignment is there. And so we just need to critically analyze, what is the incentive of Skool? The incentive of Skool is to have monthly paid membership sites and as many people on that platform as possible. That's the incentive. And so what would create people to create more monthly subscription groups is to have everyone believe that high ticket is going away, that there's a massive amount of mistrust in the market, and that the solution is Skool. It's basic marketing. Like, it's honestly, it's kind of obvious, and so I'm not saying, I don't want anyone to misinterpret that, which is a matter of fact, by the way. Like, that's not my opinion. That is the case. And so I don't want anyone who would be listening to our conversation here to misinterpret me saying that that's somehow unethical or immoral. I don't believe that at all. It's just a market capitalization, basically.
100%.
And also, if I'm going to take a step, kind of a little bit of a stretch here, which I don't really think it is, but I think Alex Hormozi has a certain level of disdain for these types of people in the market that have perpetuated all the bullshit in the coaching industry. I mean, think about it from his perspective, right? He creates an amazing book, $100 million offers, which I still think is his best book. I mean, $100 million leads is really, really good, but the principles in $100 million offers are eternal, timeless. They'll never go away. And so he has created this baby, which is the accumulation of 8+ years of eating nothing but shit. 10 years, 12 years. I don't know how long it's been, but 10 to 12 years, I think. And he puts out a multi-5, 6-figure level of information and value for free. And then a bunch of retards take the book and basically abuse its teachings, and it has a mass impact on the industry that made him most of the money that he has, right? And also the core promise of our industry is to deliver transformation, to actually help people. So people took these tools and just abused it, right? And so if I'm him and I'm thinking about that, I don't like that. Maybe I'll do something about that. Maybe I'll give away even more content for free. Maybe I will make sure that all these courses that people are paying for thousands of dollars, which are worth less than my free book, maybe I'm going to create a movement that concentrates all of that value into a more affordable option for the world. And keep in mind, the mission of acquisition.com is to make real business education accessible to everybody. It's obvious.
Yeah.
To me, this is the truth the way that I see it. And I don't think this is like some crazy conspiracy or a stretch. This is just a matter of fact the way that I see it with the top influencer in our space. I'd hesitate to call him an influencer. I'll say top entrepreneur who has the most amount of influence in our space. And it's, again, there's a changing of the tide in our industry, and we need to basically, make some moves and be aware of that. And just to kind of recap this whole point of what we're talking about here is that there's really two options. You go down the path that all the other followers in the industry would do and just go all in on having all your coaching services and courses on Skool for $200, $300, $400, $500 a month, whatever, you do that. Or you go in the opposite direction and see that there's actually a fucking massive opportunity for genuine experts who really care about delivering real impact for their clients. We obviously made the choice to go back in the other direction where there's a lot more room now. It's a lot quieter. We can breathe, can work in peace, and serve actually good coaches, And so, yeah, that's kind of like the way that I see the shift in the coaching industry. The other thing, too, that we haven't talked about is that there's a lot of external pressures here, like AI, for example, right? Like every single day that AI continues to advance, information becomes less and less and less valuable, which is actually why I think it makes the most sense to go all in on the high-ticket coaching model, because what people are actually paying for is a high-quality client experience and a transformation. And we know, as coaches, watching course lessons does not get results.
Doesn't.
The way that we measure success for our clients is work that happens outside of Kajabi, outside of Skool, outside of Slack. They have to do actual work, and that's not watching a video. And so, like, even if you wanted to make the argument that, like, school groups are better, fine, whatever. Okay, so if the school group is essentially a course that they're paying monthly, access for, and then you say it's the community, how is the community facilitating that transformation? It's not, in most cases. I mean, it builds relationships for sure, but keep in mind, all the people inside of the community are there seeking help. So you get a situation where it's kind of the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
And so obviously you could coach people in there, but then unless you have a massive audience, there's going to be a constraint with the amount of resources you'll be able to allocate to your team to create that client experience because of the amount of revenue your company's bringing in. But
so all that being said, you get what you pay for at the end of the day. And if the only thing that was getting in the way of where you are right now and where you want to be was information, all the information is available out there. But as we know, and if you're watching this, as you probably know too, it's not just the information that you're missing. Most people know what they need to do. A lot of them know how to do it, but they don't actually do it. So a huge component is accountability. A huge component is the sequence of events. A huge component is how you actually implement the things properly. And that's stuff that you can't learn from a course. And I hear this time and time again too on my enrollment calls, is people have gone through the 40-hour courses. It drives them crazy. They're sick and tired of it. They don't want that anymore. They don't want to have to keep paying a monthly subscription every month for just watered down content. They just want to be able to scale their business today and get results. And that's how we've designed the program, to optimize, to solve the bottleneck in the first, 72 hours.
Yeah.
And it's no surprise that the clients get the results that they do, right? And it's like, I'm not saying this to like humbly brag or anything like that at all. It's just like objective facts. This is what people want might change. What people need will never change. And I don't even think so. I think what people want still won't change, but what people think they want, that changes like the tides. So a lot of people think, oh, I just want to pay a little bit amount of money for more information, and it's kind of just mental masturbation at that point because they don't do anything with it. But the real people, the right people that are actually serious about their transformation, they're in pain and they want to get out of it desperately right now, they have the means to do so, they would rather pay more money for a better solution to get the result quicker with less effort and sacrifice. Alex Hormozi talks about this in his book, right? That's the value equation 101. So yeah, I think I see this opportunity as a massive opportunity because everybody is going one way like a herd of sheep, but there's still a massive opportunity and need for what we're doing, and that will never change, especially when you can actually deliver on your promises. You can actually deliver on what you claim you can help somebody with.
And when you're willing to put in the work to deliver on your promise, which is one thing that I wanted to touch on what you were sharing, which ties to what you just said, is I think there's a big misconception in the industry about what actual work is, right? So going back to what you were saying in those communities, like why are people getting so bought into like, oh yeah, the community aspect and the courses? It's because it's mental masturbation. Like there's a very big misconception, I think, not just in this industry, just in general with how like tech has exploded, like the info space, the online space, that people perceive that just sitting there watching a course or interacting with someone online equals work, which is just not true.
Yeah,
like
it's a low ticket circle jerk. That's what it is.
Yeah. So just putting myself, as you were speaking, like what's going on like behind, the scenes, and maybe putting yourself in like Hormozi's perspective on his shoes, and like the way that I see it is I think he's just seizing an opportunity, which is fine, right? Because I'm putting myself in his shoes, just following those lines, what you were saying, like, yeah, like there's a little bit of resentment maybe from his perspective towards like this industry, because a lot of people took those concepts that he shared and just used them in a really, really wrong way, right? Let me ask you something, like this is just a question that came to my head as you were speaking about that, but what do you think? I mean, and we're seeing it, right? Because right now we're in the trenches of rebuilding the course, version 4.0, right? And just how much work has been going towards that, right? Like the behind the scenes that no one is watching, right? And what we're speaking about, like being willing to put in the work to actually deliver actually good results, right? And backing them up. But what's easier? Is it easier to just, now that the market is sophisticated enough to understand that most people cannot deliver on their promises, is it easier to just lower your standards and the promise and the claim that you make, or actually putting the effort to deliver on those promises? What's easier?
I saw the answer at the workshop. I met a couple of guys came up to me and they're like, hey, are you Jeremy? Yeah. They're like, oh, I've seen your ads everywhere and like watching your YouTube videos. And they're crushing it. They're doing probably a couple $100K a month at least. And they have kind of a B2C offer, low ticket, monthly subscription in the Skool group. And the way that they were talking about their clients told me the exact answer. They were extremely condescending towards them. They pretty much said like they're all idiots, they're all morons, they don't need any more support. They need less support actually. And like that's no way to treat anybody who pays you money at all, regardless of how much it is. And so that really rubbed me the wrong way, but it just also kind of just revealed to me that it is kind of the Wild West, and you have to be very, very careful with who you trust, which is the reason for this thing. So regardless if it's high ticket or low ticket, you're still going to have all of these idiots running around making these crazy claims that don't actually deliver on anything, and they treat their clients like absolute idiots, and like they don't actually support them. So that was kind of one side. But then the other side was when Alex Hormozi was talking to us, he basically, somebody asked him a question about like, client experience and results and stuff like that. And Alex literally said it himself. He's like, you have to deliver on what you promised. He's like, why was Gym Launch so successful? Because we'd pay for the whole thing month one. In the first 30 days, we'd pay for the whole thing. And so it was no surprise that it grew by a crazy amount with referrals and just like they had the social proof to back it up. He's like, you have to actually be good at what you're doing, at the thing you're selling. It has to be good. And there's no way around that, right? So I think, let's say the market, the tide does shift one way to the low ticket, the courses, the community, stuff like that, right? But that's not going to last very long, because then people are going to get sick of that because they're not going to get any results. And this is going to be like very terrible, watered down information and just low quality people in those communities too. And then it's going to shift right back to people wanting more exclusivity, wanting more support, more help, more hands-on stuff, and actually paying for the transformation rather than the information. That's, at the end of the day, that's what's going on, right? Went from transformation now to information, which is becoming less valuable every day with AI, as you said, and then it's going to shift right back towards people actually wanting the transformation. And I don't think it's going to be a full shift either, because there's going to be so many people that still just want that. Like, I don't think any of us in the room right now, if you actually have a brain inside your head, you want the transformation. You don't want to just get more information, right? Most people do, but that's why most people are mediocre and get terrible results, and they're fat, broken, ugly, right? And they stay that way. So I think that it's very clear to me that a lot of people are just being influenced and persuaded, and then just kind of running that direction blind. And I mean, we saw this with COVID. We've seen this many times.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is just like in politics, for example, when there's when the government or the sentiment is very one-sided. Like, let's say it's very towards the left for a while, then people start to get sick of that, and then it starts to swing, and then it goes, and people vote in the people on the right, and then it swings back and forth like a pendulum, right? So we see that in politics, we see that in literally every single market. That's why markets have booms and busts, because of exactly that. But it's never permanent. But again, like Uncle Warren says, when there's blood in the streets, that's when you buy. And there's a lot of blood in the streets right now. Everybody's running. All the people that can't back up, that aren't actually good at what they do. Maybe they're good marketers, but that's all they have. They're not good at actually fulfilling and delivering the result. Whereas on the flip, the only clients we work with are the ones that are actually good at what they do. They're actually good coaches, and they're not the best usually at marketing, which is what we help them do. And we help them better their programs and their client experience as well, get more referrals, and blow up from there.
Yeah, and just want to be very clear on what it is that we're talking about, at least the way that I see it, is that it's not what it's not what Alex and Sam are arguing for. That's the problem. Same thing with the $100 million offers book. It was misinterpreted. In this case, it's the same thing. What people are doing is taking their high ticket model and shoving it into a low ticket monthly recurring revenue model without changing anything. That's, I think, what the core thing is that we're talking about here. What Alex argues for, and if people very clearly pay attention, is that the purpose of the MRR groups is to get paid to generate leads, which is true. It's amazing for that. The only nuance there is that I believe there's a sequence to these things. Like, from my experience, the people that have the most successful MRR groups at the top of their funnel, or it's not the very top, towards the top of the funnel, are those that have large audiences already. And I think that's kind of where the trap is here, is that there's beginner coaches who are, let's say, below 10K a month, and honestly, even below, if you're below 20K a month, this still applies, where you're still struggling at 20K a month, for sure. And there's always this tendency to look for the next new thing, because that's how our brains are wired, to basically reward ourselves for the shiny object. And this goes back to the more, better, new framework, which I'm sure we'll talk about in just a moment. And this is new and it's shiny. And the problem is that someone at 20K a month, if they don't have a large audience, we've seen people like in our program, for example, that they do have a large audience and they're not making the money that they want to. But that's not the case for most coaches in our industry. Going down and devaluing your services and trying to fit your high ticket program into that pricing model is a bad idea. It's just straight up a bad idea, I think. And so I think that's really what it is that we're talking about here, is that cohort of people misinterpreting what's being said here and going down that road. Like I said, you getting paid to generate leads is sick. All it really is a group funnel, which people have been running forever, with a payment option. That's all this is. The mistake is when people think that going down the value ladder before you've hit $1 million a month, before you've even hit multi 7 figures a month, is a good idea. It's just not. So that's kind of the core of what I'm saying, and I hope people can take that away from this part in the conversation, because if they haven't listened to all the way up until this point, there could be a very clear misinterpretation of our own conversation, where it's like, oh, Alex said this, he's trying to destroy the coaching industry. No, that is not what's being said here in any sense whatsoever. But that's what's happening because people are misinterpreting what he's saying. And so, anyways, bottom line is that there's always going to be a market for the best people in any industry, and the coaching industry is still growing year over year massively. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there's plenty of money on the table for the best people who are impact-driven and actually good at what they do.
So here's a caveat to that, right? Because tying it up to what we're speaking a little bit earlier, what is the effort required, like in order to give people actual results and an exceptional experience versus just lowering your standards and lowering like your ticket? Like the effort required for like a 5 out of 5 experience versus a 3 out of 5 experience.
It's parabolic. Yeah, the difference between
effort.
a 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 is the difference between a 1 and a 9.
So, and what is the solution to that? Actually putting that effort into the back end, like client success, which is what this whole conversation is about. People not being willing to put in that extra effort. So I think that's a main part of the issue, and why Alex is just trying to seize that opportunity, and also just because most people are just not willing. Like we see that ourselves, right? And I think it's a really good thing how you clarified that, like, which is why we're having this conversation. We see it ourselves and we're like, hey, if we're willing to actually do this and fulfill those promises and objectively know that we're giving people results and what they're promising for, like what we're promising and what they're asking for, and giving them that support, that client experience and those results, then yes, there is massive opportunity. The problem is that I just want to emphasize on that, because I think that's where people get it wrong. This is not just to say like, oh, no, just keep charging high tickets. Like, yeah, keep doing that, but back it up with the actual effort and work required to deliver on those promises, which is what most people are not willing to do. So it's just easier to like, yeah, I'm just going to lower my standards, lower my ticket, and go into like this war of blood versus actually putting the effort and the work required to deliver that experience. But here's the thing. You said yourself, yeah, maybe the effort required to go from like a 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 is like 5x, but what is the outcome? Like, what is the output? It's 100x. It's like, so yeah, that's where the trade-off is.
It's hundreds of billions of dollars is what it is.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, to your point too, like, yeah, that's not the takeaway either, is to not adapt and just do the things that you've been doing this whole time in the high ticket space and not fulfilling on their promises. That's what got the industry in the position that it's in. So no matter what way you look at this and what path people want to go down, a change must occur. It's either a correction to truly high quality service and transformation, or make things easier on yourself and just devalue and charge, a monthly subscription.
For now.
For now, yeah, exactly. For now,
It's a great short-term solution because you can avoid doing the hard, boring work for a long time, which is what Alex Hormozi preaches all the time anyways. And don't get me wrong, I love, he's incredible and we've learned so much. I'm not trying to hate on him, but I'm just hoping that the people kind of watching this and listening and being a part of the market don't get swept up in that.
yeah, I just don't want them to get hypnotized. If anything,
Exactly.
it's just, this is a neutral perspective on just an observation of things that have been said and patterns that were recognized in the industry. I think this is a really good thing.
I think it's incredible.
I think it's fucking amazing, and I support everything that Sam and Alex are doing. Not just because there's a selfish incentive for us to make a lot of money and have a extremely large impact on every single person that our businesses and our clients' businesses touch. It's also because it's justified. Fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Because you can either take the time to build an exceptional product, and then you're around for a long time. That's exactly what Sam did. That's exactly what Alex Hormozi did, right? They've literally done that, and most people aren't willing to do that though because it's hard. It takes a long time. It's expensive, and you have to delay gratification, and you actually have to work. Whereas what most people want to do is they want to get the max, they want to get some level of output for the minimum amount of input. And then they want to go travel the world and have a lifestyle business. But if you look at
And there's nothing wrong with that too, by the
nothing
way.
wrong with that.
That's another thing too. It's this is not a judgment on those people. It's just, hey, this is the map in the game that we're playing, the way that we see it.
And again, you gotta look at the incentives behind why people are doing that, right? If it is something about a lifestyle business and stuff like that, they just want to maintain. That means they're not going to continue to grow and develop themselves, which means that they want to enjoy their lives. And it's it is kind of and I'm saying this because I've been there. I've been in that mindset before when I first started. It was you just want to go traveling and stuff like that. And when you're traveling, you don't want to work. And you don't want to improve your product. You don't want to hop on calls.
Hard to work anyway, so we've seen that on our own trips.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's if it's a lifestyle business, then that's reflected into the the dedication and the intentions as well, right? So you can kind of see that. So I think it's no surprise why you see a lot of people in the space. They pop up and shoot up quick for 1 to 3 years, and then you never hear of them again. Aside from just, their program was awful. It was a waste of money. It feels like I lit my money on fire, right? And then no matter what they try and come up with in the future and what they sell, the reputation is just so bad because they overpromised and underdelivered for so long and for so many people. The chickens came home to roost, as Wolf of Wall Street quote would say. And then they're surprised when that happens. So it's, but you're right. It's I'm not trying to say this with any, there's no ill intent. I learned, so much from Sam Ovens. It was, the first course I ever took. It was incredible. I talk about him all the time. And, Hormozi, too. Learned so much from him. But as well, I think we're just being very objective, or at least trying to be. We're just observing kind of the patterns that we see. And exactly what you said, Alex. We don't want the wrong people. We don't want the right people to get hypnotized for the wrong reasons and follow the herd. I think that's really what it comes down to, right? Because I think that exactly what you said, it's most people don't have 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube like Hamza, and then that's what it took to build a 7-figure course community on Skool. And he won, right? I'm pretty sure he had the biggest one. It was $80K a month or something. It's a lot easier to do that high ticket. You work with way fewer people, give them much better results as well. But obviously it kind of depends on the business model too. It depends on your niche, your audience and stuff like that. For him, that makes the most sense. And also for the life that he wants to live too. I'd say it's relatively fairly hands-off in terms of making that big of an impact with so many people. So again, I think it's like very dependent on kind of like what you do and the market you serve, but then also, are you a content creator or like a business owner, like a company builder, like a product builder kind of thing, right? So if you're just a content creator and you have a massive audience and that's all you know and love, then it could really well be the best model for you, right? There's no cookie cutter solution. There's no one size fits all here. It's kind of just, what do you actually want from your life? What do you actually want from your business? What do you actually want? What kind of impact do you actually want to make? And then that will kind of, once you're clear and kind of where you want to go, then the right vehicle will make itself evident.
Yeah, for sure. It just depends, you know? And the bottom line, like you mentioned, there's a really key point is the right people getting hypnotized for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And we're talking to actually good coaches. That's who we're talking to right now.
Yeah.
That's who this applies for. And it's really that simple. So, you know, actually good coaches who identify as growth-oriented entrepreneurs who want to have a fucking massive impact on the world and every person that they serve, this applies to them. But yeah, if you're an influencer and not a real entrepreneur, no judgment there whatsoever. Subscription model is fucking amazing. But the other point too, just to get a little tactical with it too, like there's so many ways to build in recurring and reoccurring revenue to increase retention and revenue inside of your company. Like, it doesn't have to be through a Skool group. There's so many ways. Continued access, software, strategic partnerships, any type of cross-sell and upsell, and even downsells. Like, there's just so much that you can do during the client, like the main program. Like, even on the front end program, there's so much you can do. And of course, on the back end with back end offers. I think it's just a bit of a myopic view to think that like the core of your business is dependent on a monthly subscription group towards the top end of your funnel. It's a little silly,
Yeah.
to be honest, for people that we're talking to.
I think the main argument, like you mentioned before, is just kind of getting paid to get leads. But then if you think about it from like a focus and energy perspective, now you're adding an entirely new channel.
Yep.
Not only do you have to grow your Instagram and probably your YouTube and make content there and manage all that stuff, now you've got to make content for a low ticket community group. Now you have to manage the community and moderate it and deal with all the support questions and all that stuff too. And then also if you have then you have to do your high ticket program. So like think about splitting your focus. And like most people are not doing $1 million a month, let alone $100K a month, which doesn't justify splitting your focus in a million different ways right now. I think you're much better off served if you just focus on one thing for a very long time, and then that way you don't spread yourself too thin, because like you can only go so deep. So then your content becomes very surface level, your community on Skool becomes very surface level, and then your high ticket program becomes very surface level too, because you just can't, nobody can keep up with all of that. And chances are if you're doing under 7 or 8 figures, you don't have the resources to actually like build a team to maintain that. Or if you do, then what the hell is even the point? Because you're not even making any money at that stage regardless. So I think it serves a massive purpose. And I think as long as you're actually like good at what you do and build an incredible program, it can work after a certain level though. I think a lot of people kind of get hung up on like, oh, that's the solution for me right now. Whereas in reality, like, it's not. Like if you think about somebody too who's like a fitness coach, for example, because we work with a lot of fitness coaches. It's like their clients, like all the information that the fitness coach's clients need is on YouTube. They can go on Google and write and find out like how many calories they need to eat and what the macros look like and what to do for workouts. It's all there. A Skool community where they're paying $100 a month to be a part of is not going to help them not like stop being fat. It's not going to help them get a six pack. What's going to help them get a six pack is the weekly check-ins when they upload their photos and their progress pics and their weight, and then their coach tells them, okay, great work this week. Now we're doing this, and they just give them that accountability.
It could if they were facilitating group accountability in the community and relationships at scale, but that costs money, and you have to be able to do
and
effort, right? And so it's not to say that the group itself is the issue. It's that what it would take for the group to be able to do that is more than what you're getting paid for the group.
Yeah, and I'd say it's watered down too.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it's not specific. It's people love one-on-one support for a reason because it's customized to them and more valuable. It really is. And the other thing too, to your point there, like the core idea there is, it goes back to more, better, new. Don't do new shit until you've done more of the thing you're already doing and you've improved the thing that you already did more of. Yeah. And so like it's pretty well known in our industry, like prematurely launching a back-end offer is a pretty bad idea. There is no difference with this case whatsoever. If anything, it's a worse idea because you're getting paid less to serve a lower quality client avatar, and there's so much work involved with serving beginners. Respectfully, there's just so much mindset stuff that needs to get untangled, and belief shifts and education and accountability. It's expensive. Yes, it's a larger market, but it's expensive. So anyways, point being is that, yeah, it's more, better, new.
Or better, new. All right, Alex. So all that being said, I want to make this very tactical and actionable and applicable. So we've covered a lot so far, and I want to kind of like take it from up in the air and kind of bring it back down to earth. So if somebody is an actually good coach, what can they do tactically to build an actually good coaching program?
Yeah, for sure. So this is it's a holistic approach. So of course we talked about how the main mechanism by which an actually good coach will succeed in this new environment that we're already in but continuing to enter into is by leveraging client success. That is the most important thing that the people that we're talking to can do, at least in my view. And of course, we'll prove right now with everything we're about to say that is the case. But if not, I'm open to some criticism and feedback in the comments too. Like, let's get a discussion going. But anyways, so everything starts actually, the client journey, the client experience starts way before a client is closed. It actually starts with the very first time that a client gets introduced to your brand. The very first time. That's when everything begins. And so, on a tactical level, the thing that people can do to ensure that they're attracting the right clients is to make sure that their marketing message is dialed in, meaning they're speaking to a very specific person with a very specific type of problem, and they're saying it in such a way to where the lead is demonstrated that the person on the other end, you, knows their problem better than the person who's listening. That's the bottom line. And why does that need to be the case? Because they need to trust you. They're not going to buy anything from you if they don't trust you, right? So that specifically right there comes down to, if we ask the question, well, how do we do that? Well, you have to truly know who it is that you want to serve. You can't just arbitrarily go into a niche and say, I want to work with landscapers to help them lose weight if you have no idea what the life of a landscaper is like. And if you don't, you don't have to have a personal connection to that at all, but you do have to do the research. And so on that ground zero level, that's where genuine market research interviews come into play, which I know is like a bit of a trope in the coaching space. That's kind of where everyone begins. But if you do that first exercise with full effort and speak to 20, 50, 100 people, you'll know exactly everything that you need, at least to start, right? And so for people who already are making over 10K a month, they're taking sales calls, they've closed some clients, and what they need to do to gather this information from sales and send it back to marketing is ask every single prospect on every single sales call 2 questions. Number 1 is, where did you find me? And number 2 is, what motivated you to book the call? The first question answers what channel is generating the leads. And then, of course, you can get more specific and say, in a very casual way too, right? It's like, oh, by the way, was that an ad or do you see a piece of content? And then really simply, do you remember what ad you saw or what video you saw? And then that's it. You don't want to go deep into that because it's not about you on the sales call. Sales is service. It's about them. But the reason why that matters is because the most valuable piece of information is coming from the people who have already expressed interest that want to buy from us. So we don't give a shit about the people that comment or like on the posts. We care about the people who got on the sales call. So we ask them, right? Which also massively simplifies the process and removes people out of the myopic view of being stuck inside of the metrics in their ads dashboard. Because those are not the people in a lot of cases, at least at the beginner level. Of course, there's nuance when you start to scale, who are getting on sales calls in a lot of cases. The vast majority are not. And so just talk to the people that get on a call. It's easy. It's a low-tech solution that's way more valuable than any type of tracking that would be available in a 10 to 20K per month scenario. And then that second question of what motivated you to book the call. The reason why we ask that is because we want to get the language that our prospects are using and articulate a message that actually speaks to them in our ads, in our top of funnel content, the marketing on Instagram, on YouTube, whatever the top of funnel is, it doesn't matter. That's it. That's how you do it. You build that base first if you're starting at 0, and then if you're already taking sales calls, build a feedback loop. That's what a feedback loop is. You collect feedback and then you send it forward. It loops. And then over time, as the process continues to occur, real refinement starts to happen. Your message gets dialed in. That's what dialed in means, right? It starts to get more refined as you continue to collect that feedback automatically. It's easy once you use a data-driven approach. Now, that's on the top of funnel. And that the specific thing there is how to make sure that we're only bringing in the right people into our program. Why is this important? Because the most expensive bullshit experience you could possibly have for yourself and also for the person on the receiving end is getting someone into a program who's not a good fit for it.
Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks for them and it sucks for you. So we have to prevent that at the very top of the funnel with everything I just mentioned previously. Now, as things start to get down towards the middle of funnel, where leads are starting to, they know you now. They probably like you enough to watch your stuff, but they don't trust you enough. They need more. They need value. And in a B2B context specifically, you have to demonstrate value. You can't just say shit. Because everything that we just talked about previously, this is the landscape that we're in. They don't trust you because all the other guys have ruined it for everybody because they've made huge claims and haven't fulfilled on them. So instead of just saying shit, you have to show it. It's a show, don't tell type of situation. And so a little client success, client experience hack that you can do in the middle of the funnel is show what it looks like to work with you. So what does this look like tactically? Clips of your Zoom call recordings with your on coaching calls. Testimonials, obviously, of course. But in your office, some type of B-roll of someone capturing you working with your clients on a call or doing some type of work just shows oh yeah, I am an entrepreneur and I actually do the things that I say I do and you can watch me do it. It's that simple. And then of course, what Alex talked about as well in the event, which is really, really key, is that you can sell the next rung on your value ladder if the rung before paid for it, right? So in this case, everything leading up in a high ticket funnel that we're talking about here, if let's say the program's $10,000, all the value that they received leading up to that needed to lead to $10,000. At least, or they're not going to be able to pay for it. And maybe they have cash on the side, but the trust is measured in the ROI that they got from your value from the content that you produced. So, the middle of funnel content needs to actually do something. It needs to actually be tactical. It needs to solve a real problem. What problems is it solving? You got that information from the sales calls. And if you're not there yet, then the market research interviews. Easy. So those two things as well. Now, when it comes to the sales side of things, this is where stuff gets a lot more important, because the relationship is now, it's built to an extent. It exists, rather, is I think a better way of saying it. They at least trust you enough to consider working with you. And so the sales call itself, and we have an excellent sales coach, Austin Medlin, inside of the Actually Good coaching program. And so, the way that he likes to train our clients on how to run their sales calls isn't 100% congruent with the way that I run it. But what it comes down to is this idea of sales is service. And, one of my clients as well, she likes to explain how you basically, the sales rep on the call doesn't really exist. It's this idea of the mirror principle. And you're just there to be a mirror for the other person to talk to themselves, about the things that are getting in the way of the things that they really know they want to do, but they just can't seem to do it. And so your ego should not be in that conversation. It's not about you. It's about them. And quick sidestep there, that's a core issue in the industry, is everyone thought it was about them this whole time, and it never was. And now the market has responded and said, fuck you. So in the sales conversation, we'll see like a microcosm of this relationship, this pattern. And so how does someone show up on a sales call using those principles? Well, it's about asking real questions that actually matter. Yes, I think frameworks and scripts are important to a certain extent, but at the same time, it's like, you need to actually know what's going on here before you sell them the thing. Like, don't pitch these people if you don't know that A, they're a good fit, and B, you can close them.
And deliver on your promise.
And deliver on your promise, right. Now, here's the other thing, to kind of zoom forward just a little bit on how you can how client success increases the close percentage that one can have, is that conviction. A lot of cases, we see this with clients in our program as well, and of course in other programs that we've all been a part of or coached in or what have you. People think that there is a tactical or strategic issue with their sales process. A lot of cases there is, but in most cases, at least the fundamental part is that they don't believe in the value of what they're selling. And no amount of mindset training or affirmations,
sales tactics,
or looking yourself in the mirror, or self-love, or anything like that, which of course is all important in its own context, none of that will ever be more important than the truth. And if the truth is that your program is not good enough is to sell it at the price that you're selling it for, then it must be fixed. Otherwise, you're bullshitting yourself and you're bullshitting the other person on the line in the sales call. And if sales is service, which it is, you're not serving them.
Yeah, but Alex, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is work. And nobody wants to work. But if you do want to work, then you can make a lot of money.
Exactly.
And have an amazing life, too. And maybe retire at 35 or 40 or whatever if you want to, and an amazing family and self-respect.
And actually have a good impact.
And feel good on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
And not expend a lot of energy in your calls, right? Which is why we like to call our calls, as you probably heard Jeremy say multiple times, enrollment calls and not sales calls. Why? Because there's that, again, it's objective, undeniable proof, not a belief. Right now we're in a point where it's like, we don't believe the program is good, which, by the way, even with the amount of wins that we have and the percentage of client success.
Good enough. It's good. It's just not good enough to our standards.
Yeah. We're still working on it.
by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is why we're working so hard on doing the next version, right?
Yes.
So then what happens on the calls? It's undeniable proof. Like you can't, it's not whether you agree with me or not. It's like, hey, here's the wins channel. Like here's the last 4 people that joined the program got a full ROI on their investment in the first 2 weeks. Like that is undeniable, right? So then what happens? In the sales calls, you don't have to hardcore sell someone. Like it's not exhausting to you, which is what we hear a lot of people saying. Like I remember in some of the groups and the sessions when we were at the event a couple of days ago, one guy saying like, yeah, I'm just really tired. He was a closer. He's like, I'm really, really tired. I wanna change my approach to closing because I'm a very, very hardcore closer. Like I have to put a lot of work and effort into closing people. But then when we were talking about client success, you could tell based on the questions that he was asking and how they were replying to him that their program is just not amazing. They don't have a lot of good results. So it's like, well, yeah, like makes sense, right? Which ties to what you're saying. Like you can't fake that. Like when there's undeniable proof, number one, that's when sales actually become service. When, here's the thing, I know with, again, objective, it's not my imagination. It's not me believing that my program is good. It's not my mom telling me like, hey, you're doing an amazing job building your brand. No, like it's undeniable proof backed up with objective data that you're good at what you do and you know how to give people results. So when you have that, you hop on a sales call. It's what we're speaking. It is our, like, now that this became clear to us and it was like opened in front of us and we saw, it's like it is our moral obligation to take this as far as we physically can, because we know that there are some actually good coaches out there that are not being served, and if we don't push ourselves to that extent, they're gonna end up investing in other people who don't give a fuck about them and the results, right? So
Yeah.
it's work that you cannot avoid. Sounds like a lot of work, yeah, but number one, what is the payoff when you actually do that? And what is the true impact that you actually have? So again, yes, you need to put in, like, there's no such thing as getting something without giving anything in return, right? So yeah, it's gonna require a lot of fucking work. We've been, working on this months now already, on the rebuild, and we have the list. It's still a lot of work ahead of us, but we know that that is gonna be the foundation with an already better program than everything that is out there, right? To actually take us to that next level and serve the people in that way and make sales a service. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah,
there.
we like to work too, and work feels good, and work does feel like work, but that's good. And what it does is even better. So, Jeremy, wouldn't it be cool if you didn't have to get on a sales call? How many of what's the closing percentage of people that close in the DMs? And also, what do they say? Like, how are they ready for that? Like, I know it's a lot of like the client success interviews on the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. I know the appointment setting process as well, speaking of client experience, right? If you have to actually care on a sales call, you got to care in the DMs too, especially since on a branding perspective, most appointment setters are inside of the founder's account.
Speaking on your behalf.
And if they're saying some dumb shit,
it's a bad look.
It's bad.
It's a bad look. I've experienced that too.
Yeah.
I've seen that firsthand, so I know that. But yeah, when you do this properly, you can create a pretty damn good life for you, because you don't have to hard sell. You don't even have to sell at all on the sales calls. They're not sales calls. I changed the name on my Calendly form to enrollment call for a reason, because I don't have to sell anymore. And yeah, probably like 30 to 40% of people literally just message me on Instagram and they're like, all right, dude, I'm ready to join. Just send me the payment link. So I do that. And it's easy.
It's really efficient too. You don't have to pay a closer a commission.
Yeah.
There's no time involved with that. They send the message, you send the link. It's cheap to do that.
I think
profitable, I guess is another way of saying it.
Very much so, yeah. And usually those clients, like the clients you don't have to hard sell to, are usually the best clients. The ones you have to hard sell are the ones that get buyer's remorse, the ones that regret their purchasing decision, the ones that probably shouldn't be in your program in the first place because they weren't quite ready, right? And I think that's the job of your marketing, to do all of that pre-selling for you, so that way you don't have to do any of the selling when it comes to the selling process. And what I mean by that is, the way I see it is like, let's say the mind of your prospects is like a big chunk of like marble, a big chunk of stone. And with every piece of content, what you need to do is, by adding value, by destroying objections and limiting beliefs, you have a hammer and a chisel, and you're chipping away at the stone. And your goal is to make this beautiful statue of this hard, jagged, rough piece of rock, this big slab. You're trying to make this beautiful statue, and that beautiful statue is your perfect client, the one who is ready to change right now, who's ready to put their money where their mouth is, and actually take your program seriously and get the best results in the shortest amount of time, ask really good questions, and like take a lot of ownership for their own success too. And you can do that by kind of influencing them in your marketing to help them become that next level of themselves that they know they need to become in order to actually get to the level of results and success that they want. Because all transformation starts internally first and then externally as well. So there's no way that they're ever going to be that person. Like, a lot of people are like at 6 figures watching this, trying to get to 7. You're never going to get to 7 figures if you don't first become that person worthy of, and like think the thoughts and hold the beliefs that a 7-figure person does. You simply won't do that, right? So if you can help your prospects do that in your marketing, then that just opens the floodgates, and you actually provided a lot of service without having to hard sell, and you're kind of doing that over time, kind of chipping away at that, but you're also just making a massive impact in bettering the lives of every single person that follows you too. But before moving on, I kind of want to backstep as well and kind of talk about what you just mentioned very briefly, Alex, is our standards. Objectively speaking, we don't have a lot of clients. We probably have, like, I know programs that have 5 to 10 times more clients than we do, but they get about 5 to 10% of the client wins that we do. Objectively. I'm not making that up. It's a fact.
We've seen it. We're
seen
part
it.
of those programs.
Probably have the most access to that myself, of anyone that I know. It's true.
Yeah, and that's just a result of all of this, right? It's a result of everything that Alex broke down, kind of going from the top to the middle to the bottom of the funnel, because exactly as you said, the key to getting incredible results in the like on the back end in your program, one of the keys anyways, is by making sure you attract the right people in the first place. And just as like garbage in, garbage out, as above, so below, when you attract the wrong people through the top of your funnel, well, you're going to get the wrong people going through the middle of your funnel, and you're going to get the wrong people in the bottom of your funnel, in the DMs, on sales calls, and then in your program. And then your community is going to suck, your clients aren't going to get good results, you're going to hate your life because you're going to be dealing with a lot of bullshit that you don't necessarily have to do. So a tactical action step to fix this right now is to do what Alex said. Listen to what your prospects are telling you on the sales calls, in the DMs. Listen to what your clients are saying. The exact words. It's not what you think they're saying, it's what they are saying. And your clients and your prospects will literally tell you exactly how to write your ads. And you spit that right back in your ads in their own language, solving their biggest pain right then and there. And that's how you attract more of that person. And a lot of people completely disregard that as well. So
yeah, I think the point though about the like chiseling the marble into the highest value client, there's a lot to break down with that. I think it's super accurate because the highest value clients are not given to you, they're not discovered, they're made. And they're made through the funnel and also on the back end, which the funnel still continues after a client is closed. You're still selling them on the work. You're still selling them on the other stuff that you're selling on the back end as well. So a lot of these marketing and sales tactics do not change in regards to the workflow on the CS side of things. But I think there's a really important part here for people that there's a level of extreme ownership that needs to get taken where instead of saying, oh, these leads are shit, I'm attracting the wrong people. It's like, well, what am I doing to create the best clients for my program? what is my content doing? What is the funnel itself doing? How can I improve that process? What are the expectations and standards that I communicate about myself in my own personal brands that attracts those people? Am I doing that? Am I doing that in my life? Am I showing up? Do I have boundaries with myself with what I'm willing and not willing to do? Am I someone who's worthy of being followed? Am I a leader? Which goes into, again, a lot of this stuff circling back to boundaries, frame, and being a real leader. And so I love that idea because one thing that I believe very strongly is that, and I think this resonates a lot with marketers and salespeople, is the clients in your program that don't get results, which for most people, not a judgment here, I'm just saying most people is not the majority. The majority don't get results, right? So the people who don't get results are the equivalent of cold traffic in your funnel. Once you're able to completely unlock cold traffic with a message that just fucking prints, the same thing is true when you're able to get your clients on the back end results who otherwise wouldn't be able to. It's like pouring gasoline on a building that's on fire. Like, everyone knows that once you master cold traffic, you're rich. 100%.
Yeah.
You can do it through brand, you can do it through direct response marketing, you can do a combination of things, but once you're able to do that, you are rich. And if you do that on the back end, you're fucking 100 times more rich than if you were just generating money from your front end activities. And so
For much longer as well.
exactly. So exactly. And if you want to go to sell your business, that's the things that we were learning at the workshop, right? You need to have good retention. Well, there's a whole host of things that you need, but one of them is really good retention, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, creating the highest value clients through your process on the front and on the back end is key. So, yeah, I love all this. So the client is closed at this point, right? So what happens after that? The next thing that people need to install for sure, and this is a key thing. Some of this stuff is down the road of this conversation might be optional. This is not. So the onboarding experience is by far, without a doubt, the most important part of the client experience. Why? Especially in our context, they've been fucked over by all these other coaches. We are the last coaching program that they need to go to for their problem. And every person should have that mindset. They should also have a zero tolerance, 0% refund culture inside the CS team. And the majority of that happens on the onboarding experience because most people will experience some degree of buyer's remorse. It's a natural thing. The way that we overcome that is by having a amazing onboarding experience. And the first step is the handoff between sales and client success. And actually the Hormozis had a really, really great kind of spin on that, where it's not a handoff, like you're tossing a ball, it's a handshake. And so what happens in that case is that the closer who closed that client, they fill out, and if you want to do this in a systematized way, they fill out a form at the end of every sales call that's closed. And that form captures the real goals and the real objections of the new client when they enter the program. And we are going to tie everything that they're going to do to those goals. And it's going to be communicated to every person on the team that is a relevant stakeholder to this account, to this client, right? And so once that form is filled out, it gets zapped into Slack. So the onboarding specialist or the client success manager, whoever's onboarding them, gets access to this information. On top of that, handshake, the closer will either put them into a group chat, the three of them together, or they will actually the closer will be on the beginning of the onboarding call for like 3 minutes. Say, hey, this is Jack. He's our onboarding specialist. He's going to take care of you from here. Jack, this is John. He joined the program because he wants to take his family to Hawaii in the next 4 months. His wife just is cancer-free, as of 2 weeks ago, and he wants to make sure that he gives her the life that she's always dreamed of. And we're gonna make it happen. And so you're implanting that love, that care, that trust into the client through demonstration, right? So that's really key, is that handshake. And again, it doesn't have to be fully systematized. All right, so what happens after that? Well, now the onboarding call needs to be run. So what does that need to look like? So basically, the first part is setting the frame, setting the expectations, and communicating the standards of the company and also the community for the coaching program. And so mission, vision, values, that needs to be communicated. A slide deck is great for this stuff, especially if you want to communicate some, high quality 8-9 figure client experience. It should look like that in the slide decks with the branding and the design and all that good stuff. That specific piece right there is a point that a lot of people look over. They think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until it does. And so in this case, when you're actually scaling to 8 and 9 figures, that stuff needs to get created. It needs to look as expensive as the price they paid for it. I think it's pretty reasonable that that's the case. And so mission, vision, values, if that's not articulated, then that needs to be, privately, and then take that to your onboarding experience and, of course, the rest of your company. But the next step after that is to communicate what a good client is and what a good client isn't. And essentially a code of conduct. This is what you're going to do to get results, and this is what you are not going to do. And if you do these things that lead to you failing, this is what's going to end up happening. Now, that's also contextualized with a visual roadmap. The roadmap is a visual representation of the milestones that the client will pass throughout the course of the program. And so those milestones are contextualized with time intervals between each one. So milestone 1 takes 7 days to get to milestone 2. Milestone 2 to milestone 3 takes 3 weeks, so on and so forth. It also communicates this is what you will be doing at each milestone. This is what our team will be doing. And so it's very clear what the responsibilities are. And so this is a really, really key asset to create that clarity, but also just get them excited for the work that they're about to do and the results that are about to come from that. And that clarity is what is always missing in coaching programs in the very beginning. It typically will start with mindset training in a lot of cases. And if not mindset training, then some type of foundational, course lesson, which is fine. If that's necessary, fair enough. But the onboarding call should get them the awareness of what's actually going to happen. They should not have to guess. This should be told from start to finish. This is what you're going to do. This is what's going to take. This is how long it's going to take. This is what it starts at. This is how it's going to end. Right? And so at the end of that, and of course you also want to cover procedural stuff like how to use the product, how to not use the product, how to get support. And of course, all this stuff on a systematic level should be covered in a welcome video. That welcome video needs to be sent automatically after a client is closed. It should also be inside of the course hosting platform, whatever it is. And so you have all the fail-safes possible to make sure that a client has all the information that they need before they start getting to work. Because if those expectations are misaligned from a poor onboarding experience, it's going to show itself down the road. They're either not going to do the work at the rate that they need to, they're either not going to do the work at all, they're going to do the wrong work, or they are going to just essentially start causing chaos inside the community. And of course, they can do all these things at the same time too. So that's kind of the meat of the onboarding experience. But here's the actual sauce. So the core thing that my company, Client Success Solution, does is it reduces time to value as close to zero as possible while maximizing lifetime value. So time to value is the amount of time it takes for a client to get the full value of the thing that they purchased. That's how I define it. If it's a $10,000 program, how long does it take for them to get the pieces of the $10,000 worth of value? It's measurable. The milestones are those points at which time to value is activated. The SaaS world calls these activation points. That's what that means. Now, lifetime value, how do we increase that? We get them, they're either worth more, which means that you increase the price, or they pay more times for more things. So you increase the price of your offer, or you sell them more stuff more times. And so how do we reduce time to value as close to zero as possible? Well, the 0 point in online coaching programs is the onboarding call. So the way that you win the game and completely destroy any competitor that has even the slightest chance of competing with you is by doing this. You deliver a full ROI at the end of the onboarding call. So if your program is $10,000, they get $10,000 at the end of the onboarding call. Not in value. They actually do something, or something was done for them, to where now they have closed enough clients or did a thing that is worth the amount of money that the program costs. Now, that's the principle. Actually doing that is a lot more difficult than meets the eye. This is really where the hard work that we've been talking about this whole time comes into play, because you have to be creative, you have to be innovative. It's tough. And also, this isn't a binary thing as well. Like, you can get a fraction of that and still be better than 99% of every other coaching program. But we want to, set our aims high, have the highest aim here. And so that's, in my humble opinion, the most valuable thing that we've talked about so far from my experience with all my clients. If you manage to do that, I mean, dude, like,
You win the game.
you win the game.
I think that's one thing that we've done very well.
Yeah, it is. It's built into the client journey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah, like you said in the beginning, the initial bottleneck is solved in the first 3 days, whereas it takes people 3 months, if not 3 years, to solve that. And it's because things are so systematized in that expertise, that true expertise is there. And it's a matter of doing all the things that we have them do, click the button, and then the money comes.
Yeah.
And that clarity in the client journey, because the second bottleneck gets solved in the next week.
Right.
So having that knowledge and understanding on like what is a process that they need to go through to actually get that result that you're promising, at least, right? Which, and I think we've spoken about this, we just haven't mentioned it here. So we say at least, and that's why I emphasized on that. Like, they should be getting at least a return in terms of like value compared to the price that they paid of like an equivalent, right? But we're aiming for at least a 10x. So like, if you're giving me 1, we want to give you in return of value at least 10. So that is like the standard that we want to have, and back it up with real action, right?
Yep.
So going back to having those high standards. But I think something really important, because you went very, very deep into like a lot of detail, right? And like, it might sound a bit overwhelming, like especially if you're like a good coach listening to this and you're like, holy shit, like that sounds like a lot of work. I think, and the reason why I want to emphasize on this, because we've seen it also with our own clients, is like, people tend to then believe that they need to have everything perfect straight from the get-go, right? So I want to go back to what you were saying at the beginning of, or at the beginning of this specific part of the conversation, when you're like, you need to have feedback, like closed feedback loops, and use that information, use this like data-driven approach to then start making those iterations, right? So I think that's just an interesting point that I want to hear from you, Alex, like after having all of this, expertise and knowing how to install all of this like systems. What is the approach that someone who's actually a good coach has never heard anything in terms of like this, because no one in the industry actually does that, and it's like client success centered. When they hear all of this and they're like, oh shit, like where do I even start? Like, how do I know what is my journey? Like, I think a big part of it is like understanding what is that feedback loop, how do you use that data, and not being afraid in the beginning to just start, collect the feedback, because it is a never-ending game, right? Like, just never ends. You're always iterating, always, with the feedback that you get and making it better. So for those people who are listening to this and they're like, yeah, I'm actually good, I want to implement these things, but like, where do I even start? And how do you pair that with like the price of how you're selling and with the data that you currently have to have something to start with, and then how do you keep feeding that so that they don't get like overwhelmed and be like, oh, like how can I get all of these things from the get-go, right?
Yeah, so the core way that this happens is by having conversations with your paid clients. And so this actually goes back to ranking what is the type of feedback that we value the most, and it should be coming from the highest value client. And so that's someone who pays the most amount of money, the most amount of times, in full, on time, gets the most amount of results in the shortest amount of time, has given us a testimonial, a case study, and a referral. And so once you have that criteria and you run through your list of clients and check the boxes, most people are not going to check every single box, but the ones that do check every single box are objectively defined as the highest value clients, and you have conversations with those people. And so what happens at that point is you're able to understand, when you reverse engineer their client journey, you'd ask them, what were the things that they did? What were the things that they didn't? Where did they get stuck? If they had a magic wand, they could change one thing. What would it be? What was the original piece of content they saw, the original ad? What did it say? What channel is it in? You find all the things that worked, and you do more of those things, and then you do less of the things that didn't, that brought you those clients. So that's the core task there. When it comes to the question about pricing, it's just a matter of asking, like, what was this worth for you? And then playing around with the price on the sales side. But one thing I do want to mention too, just to kind of tie off the knot on increasing lifetime value, maximizing lifetime value in an ethical way, in a way that actually works, is, a lot of people go for a referral at the end of the sales call and even at the end of the onboarding call. But to me, that's super whack if you haven't already delivered that ROI. But if you do deliver that ROI at the end of the onboarding call, you have all the permission in the world to now make way more money from this specific client. You can even start the conversation to upsell them into whatever, if you have a higher tiered version of your front end offer, or plant the seed for the back end offer. It starts right then and there, the next sale. And so, if you nail this process, you can get one client to bring you 1 to 3 more clients every single time you nail that onboarding process, which is extremely profitable. So, that's that point. The other point I want to talk about too is the client journey, like how to map out the client journey itself. So this goes back to expertise and also the feedback that we just talked about. So we talked about the feedback, but now let's talk about what the person should know as the expert. And what they should know is, and this is what a client journey is, it's point A to point B. And so to start there is you need to be able to define, what does success look like at the end of the program? And I always ask prospects on sales calls, if I were to ask you, how do you know if someone has succeeded in your program, what would you say? And so that needs to be clearly articulated in a measurable, tangible way, of course, because I need to build a system around that to ascend people into the back-end offer, whatever workflow you want to trigger at the end of the client success pipeline. But that needs to be known. Of course, the roadmap, right, is there's a start and an end. And so in our case, it's when clients have made at or above $30K per month consistently. So at that point, and if they have an appointment center installed, right? So like at that point, we know if they hit those 2 marks, they have succeeded objectively, the way that we define it, and they are ready for whatever happens after that. And so the core task of whoever's listening will need to be able to define that. Now, once you know what success looks like, you need to essentially just reverse engineer all the individual action steps that a client needs to take to get from point A to point B. And of course, the beginning needs to be articulated as well, which goes back to the highest value client. Do you want to be, like, maybe technically you could work with pretty much anybody, but do you want to? Where is the starting point that has the shortest time to value and the highest lifetime value? That needs to be defined. Like in our case, for example, don't really serve people that don't have a proven offer. They have to be actually good coaches. They at least can sell enough to survive? Is their marketing at least good enough to bring in like 7 to 8 to 10K a month? That's how we defined it, right? And so
do they have testimonials to back up that they actually know what they're doing?
Exactly. Do they have undeniable proof in those case studies and testimonials, right? And so, again, that's how we define it. So once you get point A and point B, you just clearly state what the individual action steps are in a sequential step-by-step process from point A to point B. Now, this actually ties into optimizing the course lessons now. So exiting out of the paradigm of the Sam Ovens model of 3-hour course lessons, and people that have taken that model to the extreme of tens of hours of course content, in some cases hundreds of hours of course content. Anything that is not within the client journey that gets them from point A to point B as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible goes through a process of elimination, automation, and delegation. This is Tim Ferriss's tried and true framework from the 4-hour work week. So we did that in our process. There was a lot of things that we saw where we were like, hey, is this necessary to get them to 30K a month? Nope, delete. Is this thing necessary? Nah, but it's still valuable. Let's position it as a bonus. We kind of have this thing positioned here. Maybe it should be in the beginning. Yeah, that makes sense, right? And this is, again, the process of iteration and being innovative. And so that's how the course content is optimized. And then as far as creating high quality course content, it needs to run through a Socratic framework of who, what, when, where, why, how. So every single variable that is discussed in that lesson needs to have a Socratic run through of what's being discussed. You need to answer who's doing what. Again, the questions, who, what, when, where, why, how. It needs to be complete. And if you run through and create your educational material through a Socratic framework, it is impossible for it to not be effective. This is thousands of years old, this framework. It works extremely well. And so that there also needs to be very clear if-then scenarios. If X, then Y, so that people can start to troubleshoot the challenges that they are inevitably going to face inside the program. The if-then framework is also the core, that is what a flowchart is. It is the core piece of a roadmap. If you can't answer it in the course lessons, you can't answer it on a higher level inside of the entire client journey. And then the last thing is it needs to be specific. Like things like this is a really big point in our competitors' programs, is that they're not specific enough. It's high and medium
And actionable.
level. And actionable, right. Specific and actionable. And so, inherently it should be actionable because it's mapped onto that action step, but that loop needs to be closed. So, of course, every lesson needs to have the action steps clearly articulated as well. And it should feed into the next one. And so that's basically how you create really high quality course content as well. As far as production value goes, it's kind of optional. Again, I think if you're selling high ticket, that it should look high ticket.
And feel.
It should look and feel high ticket. So invest in high quality, production. And and I guess the last point too, as far as, there's obviously a whole host of things that we can talk about. But really the last thing I want to emphasize is what it means to be a good coach, which I would love to get your feedback on, Eduardo, because, we've been working together on this. You've already been coaching previously. I have a lot of coaching experience as far as reps go, of time in the trenches and the types and the amount of people that I've spoken to. But, to your question of, all right, this guy's saying a lot of stuff. What do I do with this? Like, what are the things where I can just implement today after this conversation? And we've talked about a number of them, but this is the easiest and the cheapest because it's free, and it's being a good coach, right? It's actually being able to have those conversations, have the truth-seeking ability to identify what the real challenge is, and then leveraging your expertise as a coach to solve that in a tactical and effective way. So what has been your experience as the best CSM in the entire info space?
It's a really, really good question. And I have the answer for that, which, by the way, it's thanks to the guidance on the team, like that just makes everything easier, and just being inspired by serving actually good clients who actually care about their clients as well. this is a topic that I've been thinking a lot about. Like as I started getting more involved with this industry, investing all of that money into all of these programs and being failed by it. So the first thing, and which is I think one of the biggest reasons why trust has been lost in this industry, is because people just don't care. Like people were just focused, that's what we all saw. It's like everyone's really good at marketing and selling, but they're not actually good at fulfilling their promises. And the first step is just caring. Now, I want to be very clear on this point because I've had a lot of clients like that were my clients previously, and also people that are our clients right now as we're joined forces and are doing this together now, that are like, oh my God, like you really care. Like that's amazing. And it just pisses me off that the standard in the industry became so low that people started seeing the fact of just caring for them as a bonus, as oh, you're delivering on the promise. And the way that I see it is like, no, that's just like the bare minimum. Like that is the standard. Like me caring about you does not justify me charging 3K, 5K, 8K, 10K. Like there has to be an actual tangible outcome and result, right? So that is just the first thing, actually caring, which is unfortunately something that we see a lot of people not even doing. So really caring about your clients, their results, and them. Just, I mean, it's a relationship, right? Like what you were saying when we were speaking about like the handshake instead of like the handoff. And I saw you getting a little bit emotional when you were giving like that example, right? Of like, hey, this is because we go that deep. It's like, hey, it is a true human relationship. Like we've seen that with some of our clients right now, right? That we know that they're going through like some really difficult like personal things. And we're like, dude, let's just call them. Like instead of just being like, oh yeah, like do your thing and whenever you want to come, like, no, it's like building that relationship. So understanding that coaching specifically, it's a true relationship. Now, with that being said, also not fooling yourself to believe that just by the fact of you caring about them, you're entitled to charge 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, whatever is the amount of money that you charge, right? Like 10K or so. It's then putting in the work to actually understand, okay, I mean, all of the stuff that you just spoke about, like what we're saying about, because I think that's a thing, right? When we speak about client success, people in this industry have no fucking clue what that is. So this is what it is. What you just explained, like the level of detail.
In part,
yeah. But this is what I mean. Like that's just like a tiny thing, but that is not even like a conversation in most of the industry, right? So the level of detail that goes into each one of the modules, from like running every single thing that you do through a Socratic framework. Number one. Number two, in the bigger scheme of things, the bigger picture from like a higher point of view, like understanding what is a point A to point B. So having that full understanding and alignment and having that feedback loop where you're understanding exactly what it is that you're promising to your clients, which are the clients that are actually a good fit for that or not. So having that level of understanding and work ethic, and in the end it's a responsibility because people are trusting you with not only their money, which is a lot of money, but also with their time, their energy, and their attention, and in a lot of cases, their life. Like their success in your program determines whether they're going to be successful in their life or not, right? So also having that level of understanding, which I think as a client success manager, it's a huge responsibility that a lot of people don't understand. They just think of this of like, oh yeah, it's just about the money. Yeah, we're making 8 figures as a company. That's awesome, right? Like it's like, no, you have to back that up. So as a client success manager, being the first, like the first one to be a top expert in the course that you, like in the stuff that you do for them, right? So that exercise that we did in the beginning, right? Of like, hey, even though, and just to clarify, because I was already a client of this program, right? Like I already saw what this program was capable of. So then I was like, okay, I want to be the one who provides that transformation inside of it because I already believed in it, right? But then even after me going through that once already, stepping into this now from like this new perspective, being like, hey, I'm going to be extremely critical of what are exactly the exact steps that need to happen in every single part of the process to get someone from point A to point B, and me being the first one who understands that. So rewatching the entire course in a span of like 4 days, and not just like sitting there and like watching it, because there's a very big difference between like active learning and passive learning. Like at every single one of the modules, writing down what are the exact steps that need to be taken so that I know exactly in my head that if this person that we already have a very clear idea after all of this process of iteration is like an ideal fit for us and we know that we can serve them, I know as literally in a checklist that if they do A, B, C, D, like all of these things, they're going to achieve the result that we're promising. So being able to become the expert in what you're doing and being really close to the clients themselves, but also being good at communicating to like leadership, what you're seeing and how we can improve that, because I think that's also a really, really good part. Just being a really good communicator. So being willing to understand what is the responsibility that you have, becoming an expert at the program. I think that's one of the first jobs that a client success manager should do as they join a new company, is like going through the course from like this very critical like perspective and breaking it down and understanding exactly what is the step-by-step process that needs to be taken. Communicating with everyone else in the company, because I remember that I was having this conversation with one of our, just going back to how client success is the foundation of everything, right? Having this conversation with one of our closers, he was like, bro, just seeing all of the results and the testimonials in the groups when we do the handshake and we create this 3-way group and I'm part of it, like seeing all of our clients that we're closing get those results in the span of like a week or 2 is making me so much more confident in the sales calls to actually push and use sales as a service, because I know that they're being handed off to like something better than not being with us, right? So that just affects everything. So understanding as a client success manager or client success person inside of the company that you have a big responsibility, and just like taking that responsibility, putting in the work and communicating also what you see with everyone else in the team, because there's also things that you're going to start realizing. It's like, hey guys, I'm realizing that a really big bottleneck, which was our case, is like this thing that we didn't realize before. So what do we do to solve it? So having that really good communication, that level of caring, but putting in the work and not fooling yourself to believe that just by the fact of caring, you're doing a good job, because unfortunately a lot of the clients actually tell you that. Like I remember that in the beginning, like, bro, oh my God, like you like, I've never gotten this level of support. So I'm like, cool, yes, we're gonna give you that, but we need you to 10x your business. So that's when we're gonna be happy. So I think it's those things. Maybe it was a bit broad and you want me to focus on something more specific about that.
I just want you to speak your mind. I would also say too, just on a tangible level, everything Eduardo just said, and then read the Coaching Habit. It's an amazing book. It's called The Coaching Habit, written by Michael Bungay-Stanier. I ran over 1,000 coaching calls through that framework. It's tried and true. It works. And yeah, it has feedback loops built into it. So do that.
On that note, one thing I do want to mention as well is when Alex was saying, like, how do we define success in like our main flagship program, 30K a month? I want to make it very clear. We've helped many, many people get to 50, 80, 100K in a month and above. That is our lowest baseline standard.
Yeah, and that's key in building the system too. It's like the success is defined as the bare minimum.
Correct.
At the end.
Yeah. So I just want to make that clear, because we have people that join that are already doing 30K a month.
Oh yeah.
20, like last week at the event, like Marcus, for example, he was doing 20K a month, give or take. And then now he's doing a lot more than that. And I won't say anything specific, but nonetheless, that said, I think it's a good time to wrap things up here. A lot has been said. There's a lot of work to do and to be done, because we've provided a lot of tangible, actionable steps. So that said, if you're an actually good coach and you want actually good help to scale an actually good coaching business, then book a call down below. Links in the description. Again, it's an enrollment call. It will help you change your life. So again, Eduardo, pleasure. Alex, thanks for dropping all the sauce.
Always, dude.
I'll see you guys in the next episode.